Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Few Relationship in the True Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "I'm a terrible wife and didn't understand my husband for 10 years. I have been married to my husband for 10 years. We dated for 2 years before marriage, but also dated for a year and a half during the end of our college years. My husband is a good man. He works from home as a tech executive. He goes into his office around 7:30 a.m. and works until 6 p.m. every day. In addition to this, he'll do the laundry every week while I'm at work, does most of the cooking, almost all of the meal planning, and spends all of his time with me and his extended family. When he's not working, he spends most of his free time working on projects around our property, small renovation projects, improvements to our yard such as a huge deck, a fancy patio, pergolas, and custom wood furniture. He is completely supportive of me, encourages me in positive ways, and pushes me to pursue my interests. I couldn't ask for a better partner. He is a dream come true. My husband does well professionally. He doesn't spend money on much beyond tools to aid in our ever ongoing renovation projects. He's always been difficult to give meaningful gifts to. For Christmas this year, he didn't ask for anything. When I asked him what he'd like for Christmas, he told me that he didn't need anything. This is his default response for any gift-giving occasion. His birthday, Christmas. He's asked me in the past to specifically not give him anything for Valentine's Day or our anniversary. This has always made me want to put in more effort, but the truth is that the more effort I put in, the less he seems to like whatever I give him. He tells me he likes whatever I give him, but his smile isn't authentic, and he doesn't really seem to express any interest in most things I give him beyond the moment, as if the interest he expresses is more appeasement. He doesn't own much beyond tools and a sneaker collection, and books, most of which are work-related. Before his birthday this year, I asked him what he wanted for his birthday. I don't need anything. I mulled this over and then I fell down a rabbit hole on the internet about relationship advice. This led to me going back to him and asking him what he'd like to do on his birthday. He said he had a lot of chores to do and was hoping to spend his birthday, which was on a Sunday this year, completing a couple of house projects. I wasn't satisfied with this after considering it for a while. So I later asked him, what would be a nice thing to do on your birthday? He looked at me for a moment and started talking. We live on Long Island, New York. On the South Shore is a series of bays and barrier islands that are set up as beaches. There's a causeway that connects the main island to the beaches on the barrier islands. We visit the beach several times a week in the summer, driving over that causeway. He said that he thinks it would be nice to drive across the causeway early in the morning before the road got busy, to drive slow to enjoy the view. He's always the driver and it's difficult to appreciate the view when trying to keep an eye on the road, and that he always wanted to be the passenger so that he could focus entirely on the view of the sun coming up over the bay and the Atlantic. Then he just smiled and turned his focus back to what he was working on. We've driven over that bridge maybe 1,000 times together. He's always driven. I felt like an absolute idiot. The morning of his birthday, we woke up early, made some coffee, and I drove him over the causeway to the beaches and back. I drove slowly, and he stared out at the view on both sides of the car. When we made it back over the causeway, he asked if we could do it again, and so we did. And when we made it off the causeway the second time, I asked if he wanted to go again, but he said no, that he was hungry and wanted to go home. I don't know if it was my imagination or not, but I thought he looked happier that day than I had seen him in a long time. He busied himself working on the deck, and I closed myself in the bathroom and fought off sobbing, because all he wanted for his birthday was to look at the water, and I got him another watch that he'll put with all his other watches and never wear. I got him a watch because I don't know the man I've been married to for a decade, who I have spent over 15 years of my life with. The next week, I asked him what would be a nice thing to do on Saturday. He said he always wanted to go to the Cradle of Aviation Museum ever since it had its major renovation. I looked it up. It reopened following that renovation in 2002. We were 14. He's basically wanted to go there his entire life and hasn't made it. It's 20 minutes away from where we live. When I asked him why he never went, he said he had been busy with work, so I took him to the museum. I knew he always was interested in aerospace. His father and grandparents were all involved in that industry. When we got home from it, he went to work on our new planters out back, and I couldn't stop myself from sobbing in the bathroom. With Father's Day coming up, I asked him what would be a nice thing to do on Father's Day. I always give him a Father's Day gift from our daughter dog and we have people over. I asked him what would be a nice gift from our dog this year. He said that he thinks it would be nice if we drove out to the National Cemetery at Calverton to visit his father's grave. And he then said he didn't need anything for a gift. When I pressed him on it, he said he's not a father. We don't have kids. My father's dead, I don't have anything to celebrate, and I just broke down sobbing there in front of him. He thought I was upset about not having had kids, but the truth is that we never prioritized it, and it was too late medically for me when we tried. He had always taken a whatever happens happens approach to the topic of parenthood, neither wanting nor not wanting children. But I was upset because in that moment I realized that he didn't want anything I had pushed on him on Father's Day and had made the mistake of prioritizing him over his feelings. His father passed away weeks before our wedding. His father's goal was to live long enough to attend our wedding, but the cancer was too far along. I fed him cake and steak for 10 years on Father's Day without realizing his thoughts were on the other side of the island at his father's grave. I failed him for our entire relationship. He asks me for absolutely nothing except to not make a fuss over him, and I failed at even doing that. User JRD54 said, I have prioritized my wife a lot in my marriage, to a point of resentment at times because I wasn't advocating for my own needs. As long as he is genuinely happy, then you've not been a terrible wife. You could have done better, sure, but we could all be better partners. User One Amazing Day said, I understand your emotions here, but I think you're missing the forest for the trees, as they say. You have created and understood this new connection to him now because he was finally ready to share. Maybe he himself wasn't even aware of or in need of making these new discoveries with you until now. Don't waste time on regrets. It sounds like these experiences are giving him a lot of joy. Perhaps they wouldn't have been as meaningful in the past. I think it's beautiful to discover new things about one another deep into a marriage. I think it's lovely you are embracing this undiscovered side of your husband. User Gatibo22 said, your husband is like me. I'm a self-sacrificing guy who is stoic to a fault. I have no desire for material things, so I just go with the flow and make sure my family is happy and everyone I protect or look after is taken care of. I have always put myself on the back burner as I believe I can handle everything on my own, but the people around me need me. The things you recently did for your husband sound so amazing to me that I'm jealous you did those for him. Since material things don't matter to me, I have a love of nature and circumstantial beauty. So to add to your already beautiful list that you've done and the introspection that it's given me, I would adore it if my wife made an amazing meal for me. I would love to sit quietly at the beach or look for sharks' teeth or shells. I would love to go on a hot air balloon ride. I would love to see the world and interact with it in ways that most don't. I love that you've discovered this about your husband. You're an amazing wife. He's lucky to have you, as honestly, you're the first person to ever realize this about him. This final story was made in the AITAH subreddit by a user named Organic Let. The post is titled AITA for threatening my wife with divorce after she quit her job to be a trad wife. I don't even know where to begin with this. Me and my wife have 2 kids together. My wife and I have been together for 12 years and married for 8. Around a year ago, I noticed my wife increasingly sending me these trad wife or traditional housewife TikToks. I have nothing against that type of relationship, but I don't think it makes sense for our current family situation. I do earn quite a bit more than my wife and enough to sustain our family on my own, but I don't see the need to do so. I work 80% and my wife 50%, and besides Wednesdays where both of us are working, either one of us is always home for the kids. I could work 100% and let my wife be a stay-at-home mom, but again, both of my kids are attending school, and in my mind there is no need for my wife to be at home 24/7. She got increasingly pushy about it over the past 2 months, and again, I just kept on telling her that there wasn't any need for that, and if we did decide to go down that route, what would she do during the hours my kids attended school? I know damn well our house doesn't need to be cleaned for 6 hours a day. She would constantly try to butter me up with, you would have dinner ready every day when coming home from work, and something about unlimited intimate favors or some nonsense like that. Again, in the nicest way possible, I would remind her that our kids weren't toddlers and our current work-life schedule allowed us to function perfectly fine. We got into a pretty heated argument 2 weeks ago about it, and my wife completely stopped being intimate with me to show me what I would be missing out on. She's basically been treating me like a roommate since. I just thought she would get over it and this was just a phase, but God, was I wrong. I came home from work yesterday and saw a bunch of presents on the dining table. At first, I thought they were all for me since my birthday was in a week, but then I saw the labels on them addressed to my wife. I read one of the letters attached to one of the presents. The last sentence on it was literally, "It was such a pleasure working alongside you and I wish you all the best moving forward." I thought this was some sick prank. A few minutes later, my wife just casually strolled into the living room acting like nothing was wrong. I guess she saw my mad expression and had the audacity to tell me that you'll get over it. I just lost it. I just left without saying another word and went to my parents' house. I feel absolutely disrespected. Why would my wife think it was okay to just quit her job without telling me and just expect me to be fine with it? My wife has been bombarding me with texts and calls, demanding to know where I am and that the kids miss me. I just told her to go find a lawyer and that I was done with her and then proceeded to block her. My son just sent me a voicemail crying and asking why I was divorcing mom and if I was leaving the family, and I guess that kind of broke my heart. I haven't responded and honestly don't know what to say to him. My mother-in-law has also been demanding that I return home and apologize to my wife. My parents also seem to be siding with my wife since they are traditional Muslims. My mom also used to be a stay-at-home mom. I feel like I'm wrong for immediately jumping to divorce without hearing her out. And besides this whole job drama, I love my wife too much for this to be the end of our otherwise perfect marriage. But on the other hand, I feel like I've lost complete trust in her. Should I just swallow my pride and let my wife stay at home from now on, or should I follow through on divorcing her? How should I navigate this situation? User invite additional said I'd leave. That's manipulative as hell. Let her be a traditional wife with some other sucker. To this comment, user excellent cold said she immediately told the kids what was happening. Manipulation at its finest. Never involve the kids in adult issues. That would be the final straw for me. I'd be done. User internal salary said, no, that's crazy. She just quit her job because she saw some TikToks. Listen to what I just said. To this user, Klingons ate my cheese said, I have a friend who got really into the traditional wife thing because of TikTok. Then she went to a traditional wife meetup and found out that most of those traditional wives make a lot of money from being influencers and pay to have nannies and housekeepers so that they can spend their time creating content, getting ready, filming, editing, all that. They are working and they hire help. They just don't tell their followers that. A lot of clothing, makeup, food, furniture, and utensil brands pay them to use their products in their videos. More than a few bring in more money than their husbands, but they make it out like they don't earn anything and their husbands pay for everything. Estee Williams is one of them. She has a housekeeper. Almost everything in her videos is sent to her by various brands to use in her videos. She makes on average about $15K a month. After that meetup, my friend went back to work and stopped with the traditional wife life, because the social media traditional wives are working already and are selling lies. Update. I just want to add a few crucial details that I missed mentioning in my original post. I suffer from a genetic heart condition that puts me at risk of stress-induced cardiac arrest. I used to work full-time but was forced to cut down on my work after suffering a silent heart attack. This was nearly a decade ago, but since then I've worked on my own physical and mental well-being. Some people didn't understand me constantly mentioning why it was such an issue working the extra 20%. I honestly don't know how much time I have left, and my kids are the most important things in my life. For my own mental health, it's essential that I get to spend time with my kids throughout the week. Besides my wife and kids, I have nothing. I hate my job and purely continue for the sake of my kids and wife. Well, after spending a day at my parents' house, eventually I felt enough time had passed for me to gather my thoughts on everything. What she did seemed like the ultimate slap in the face, but I went back with the intention to resolve this and didn't want to escalate this nightmare. My wife seemed happy I returned, but wasn't apologetic at all. The kids, especially my son, were ecstatic. That sort of made me ignore the lack of remorse for the time being. That same night after putting my kids to bed, I told her we need to have a serious discussion. I told her how I felt about everything she did. The fact that she knows about my health condition and still went through with it. The fact that I set clear boundaries and she still chose to quit her job without my consent. How the fact that she told my son that I was going to abandon the family really felt like a stab in the back. How throughout all of this, she didn't even seem remorseful once. The The fact that she chose her own happiness to the detriment of mine. The fact I sacrificed so much for the family and I got repaid like this. The fact that we now as a family have to make major lifestyle changes, since a third of our family income vanished. For a split second, I saw an ounce of sadness in her eyes before she went right back to being annoyed with me. I then simply told her to lay out her half of the story. Here is a summary of what she said. She felt ignored by me constantly rejecting her proposal. She had worked long enough and this was finally the time for her to enjoy her life as a true wife. She also said that I was being a baby about the whole spending extra time with the kids thing. That really angered me, and we ended up getting into a heated argument. I couldn't bear any of it anymore and just ended up sleeping in the guest room. Until yesterday, nothing changed. She constantly tried to play everything off and wanted to embrace her new role by constantly trying to have sex with me and by making me my favorite dishes. It just felt like she was trying to manipulate me again. I wasn't having any of it. I just kept on sleeping in the guest room. Until yesterday, nothing changed. She constantly tried to play everything off and wanted to embrace her new role by constantly trying to have sex with me and by making me my favorite dishes. It just felt like she was trying to manipulate me again. I wasn't having any of it. I just kept on sleeping in the guest room. Well, my birthday was yesterday. And after work, my wife and kids picked me up and we ate dinner together. This was probably the first time I genuinely had a smile on my face in a week. Well, that smile vanished because she tried to seduce me again later that night. I rejected her and, to my surprise, she had a full-on mental breakdown. I just held her as she started apologizing for what she did. She claimed she didn't understand how much she hurt me, she was sorry for making me feel like an afterthought, etc. We ended up sleeping in the same bed yesterday. I felt like things were finally moving in the right direction, and I again asked her about searching for a new job today. Instead of getting mad, she just replied with an "I need to think about it." Yeah, that's where things are as of today. It feels like progress is being made, but I don't know, this just might be another manipulation tactic of hers. I'll probably make a final update in a month or so. Reddit isn't doing my mental health any favors. How would you guys move forward in this situation? Could I have done something better? Is she being genuine? Final update. Again, I'm beyond grateful for all the love and support you guys have shown me. If I'm being honest with everyone, I've been drinking a lot to get through this mess. I felt like a zombie just wandering around with no purpose. My wife's actions completely broke me. Thankfully, I've managed to cut most of it out over the past week, and that's mostly thanks to the support I received. You guys seriously helped me keep my mind busy with something else besides alcohol. Being reminded that I have two smaller versions of myself looking up to me and learning from the things I do really helped me snap out of it. I've been at my lowest since making my first post, and I think I've just hit a new low. Until last week, nothing changed since my last update. My wife still pranced around enjoying her new lifestyle while I suffered in silence. After posting my update, I did realize that my wife 100% was trying to manipulate me into submitting to her demands. I asked her if she actually started looking for a job, and she hesitated and told me no and she needs more time. If I'm being honest, that's all I needed to know from her. I tried making this work, but honestly, I couldn't keep living like that. Every day that passed felt like a part of my soul vanished. My wife kept on trying to please me, but it didn't seem genuine at all. I've also started noticing her getting lazy and starting to neglect my kids. My wife stopped cooking, and after working 9 hours of hell, I now was the one to help my son with his homework and the one to play Barbie with my daughter. I'm not complaining about spending time with my kids, but I could seriously see this becoming worse as time goes on. I don't know where the woman I once fell in love with went, but the person that lives with me wasn't her. I know a lot of you are going to smile hearing this, but I did tell my wife that I want a divorce last week. I came home from work and saw my wife sitting on the couch watching TV while my daughter was crying in her room. I just snapped at that moment. I told her we need to have a serious discussion after the kids go to sleep. After I put my kids to sleep, I sat down with her and told her our marriage was over and that I'll be contacting my lawyer tomorrow. Divorce was never something I ever planned on doing in my life, but I just felt like something needed to change or my kids would be visiting my gravesite in a few years. Our culture frowns upon it, and I knew I was about to get serious backlash for it, but at this point, I couldn't care less. I don't know why, but she thought I was joking and started laughing. I told her I was being serious this time, and her manipulation methods weren't going to work on me anymore, and her face just went pale. She then went from screaming at me to crying to then blaming me for every issue in the family to then begging for another chance. She literally went to get her laptop and tried to apply for jobs on Indeed while begging. I just told her to cut the bullshit and told her I tried my best, but she just kept giving me empty promises. I told her the following: I know her trying to be intimate with me was just a manipulation tactic and not to show her devotion to me, as she puts it. If she was truly sorry, why didn't she start applying for jobs immediately instead of waiting until I confronted her? Her completely disregarding any of my feelings and needs while purely pursuing her own shows me how selfish she actually is. She knows about my health and still chose to completely disregard me, and now this part angered me a lot. Her poisoning my son against me when this all started was beyond unacceptable, and looking back, was enough of a reason to divorce her. We ended up fighting for another hour or so, and her constant screaming ended up waking our daughter. That's when I told my wife to be quiet and go to bed. The following day, my mom called me during work and asked if I had lost my mind. My wife told my mom that I was going to divorce her. She claimed that I was bringing serious shame onto the family, and she didn't raise me to abandon my kids. Yes, my wife told my mom that I was planning on abandoning my kids and has been feeding my kids the same misinformation. I explained to my mom the reasons why I wanted a divorce, but she won't budge. If I divorce my wife, I'm a disgrace of a man, and my mom wants nothing to do with me. I know my mom well enough to tell that her words are just empty threats, but what hurts me most are the reactions of my kids. My son won't look me in the eyes and won't even let me anywhere near his room. My daughter just tries to hit me whenever I try to talk to her. I've tried explaining to them that I'm not going to give up on them and their mom and I are just going to separate, but they seem to believe whatever misinformation my wife tells them. Friends and in-laws also claim that I'm a monster for making my wife go through this. My wife was served with divorce papers 2 days ago and has been crying nonstop since. My wife told my kids about the divorce papers and they both claim that they will never talk to me again. In my son's words, I'm a bad husband and father. I cried myself to sleep that night. I thought divorce would bring me peace, but it's only brought me one step closer to taking my life. As I stated in my previous post, I have nothing and am nothing without my kids. Growing up in poverty as a refugee in Germany, I promised myself that I would give my kids a life that I myself could have only dreamed of, but I feel like I failed. I'm sorry for making this post longer than it has to be. Again, I just want to thank everyone for the love and support, but this will probably be my last post. Wishing you all a lovely week. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.